All right, thanks, Jackie. All right, so my name is Libor Vance. I'm a senior product designer on the ecosystem team. So just a quick reminder of what the ecosystem team is all about. So our vision is to support the seamless integration between GitLab and third-party products and services. So expanding GitLab's market opportunities by empowering developers to contribute. So for today's UX show, oops, so, all right, did everyone see the screen change? Okay, great. All right, so for today's UX showcase, I want to be talking about the epic that we've been working on for a while, which is called the mass integration at a group and instance level. So I have a link here to the epic. So I won't go through the epic just yet, but so let me start telling you all about what this is all about and why it's important. So I'm going to start with a story. So just imagine that you're Devin, you're a DevOps engineer, and your organization has like around 1,000 Jira projects. And so your job is to make sure that every GitLab project owner is using the organization's custom web URL, for example. So they have to make sure that that's consistent across all of the projects, but you still want all the project owners to still use their own username and password, for example. So today, Devin has a couple options on how to enforce that URL consistency. He could either do it all manually, go through each project one by one, maybe send out an email to all project owners. But again, you don't know, when that's actually all going to happen. But we also have this feature called service templates right now. That's a possibility to use. But the service templates feature does have some limitations. So for example, like service templates only allow for new projects to inherit values of the template settings. So, and then once these set values might get overridden. So for example, if a project owner overrides that web URL, like I mentioned, there's no way for that owner to, one, see what settings see that it's been overridden, and two, there's no way for that admin to kind of force inheritance down again. So that's where before I go there, if we also take a look at the data, you could see that a lot of our users, have well over 1,000 active Jira projects. So that's a huge problem if there's a manual process involved there in order to update each one of those projects. So that's where our this mass integration at a group and instance level can be very helpful. So the goal of this is to make it easy for organizations with thousands of projects to set up complex and sophisticated inheritance, allowing for all projects to automatically have the correct project settings on day one and on an ongoing basis. So we're going to do this by basically bringing integrations that you currently see at the project level to the group level and to the instance level. So here's just a little quick chart and a fun little fact that I learned recently from Arturo, that you could actually create these kinds of diagrams within Markdown in an issue. So there's a little learn more link here if you're interested. So now to kind of go into some of the current work that's in progress. So I have an issue here, which I'll just bring up. So in this issue, this is our single source of truth for all the designs, and kind of showing the ideal state of this new update. So we went back and forth a little bit on how to communicate these designs, just because there's so many designs in so many different states. So what I ended up doing is I broke the designs down by our user stories that we want to solve for. And I have a Figma link that kind of ties to each one of these user stories. And sometimes a Figma prototype addresses, more than one user story. So if I click on one of these, for example, I'll just give everyone just a quick preview of this. This is one of the Figma user stories that's available to anyone to kind of come in and look at. And I found this a little bit easier to navigate and follow than just looking at single static screens without context of the actual flow that you might want to go down. So this is, I won't go down the full flow, but this is a quick example of what the integrations of a Jira integration might look like at the instance level. So you'll see that some things have been cleaned up in the UI, and there's some new updated controls. All right, so to go back to this single source of truth, and then also this, this issue has a bunch of different states here identified, and what was also helpful was that I ended up doing a walkthrough with the team, and we recorded that. So it's anyone kind of coming anyone new coming into this issue can just easily just watch the walkthrough instead of also trying to click through each prototype and maybe try to fumble around what they're actually looking at. So I think the video walkthrough is very helpful. All right, going back to the presentation here. So now, you know, thinking about we've come up with this ideal state that we want to design for, and so how do we get from the current state to this ideal state? So I've put together these. You could see these two different screenshots. One of the current state, and this is at the project level, and then this is the ideal state that we're working towards of getting this project level kind of integration to a more top level, instance level, and group level. And so you'll notice that there's a lot of little changes just in the UI here, aside from just some of the bigger backend changes that need to happen. So on the newer ideal state, you'll see that some of the UI has been cleaned up, and then there's some new additional controls. So in order to break this down, I broke it down kind of. We created many issues, other issues, and then it's kind of broken down into kind of these three sections, which is new functionality, UI polish, which is a lot of that involves just kind of making sure that the UI components that we're using are now updated, are using the latest from our Pajamas UI kit. And then there's another kind of section that's more involved with about getting feedback and then just validation, solution validation. So in this breakdown, for the new functionality, there's a lot of backend issues that have been created. There's some more design-related issues that kind of have some of the more low-fidelity wireframes and prototypes that I mentioned here in the end-to-end mockup issue. And there's also an issue that we created, which is called just the NVC issue, which is discussing with the developers how we're going to break this down into the smallest possible useful update that we could deliver. So that's still in progress. And then, like I mentioned, for the UI polish, this has been broken down into a lot of smaller issues. So if I go back to just showing the design, so you'll see that, for example, the labels on the forms, instead of being on the left, they should be on above the form field or the input field, like we have in Pajamas. So there's a lot of little updates like that we just need to update the UI and just make it consistent with what we have in Pajamas. So those are other smaller issues that can be worked on all in parallel and independently of this actual update. And then we also have this feedback and validation. So as I was working through this, through these prototypes and this end-to-end mockup issue, there was some interactions, and then maybe some UI components that I wasn't sure that I could be leveraging or should be using, or maybe I was also questioning whether there's a better way to do certain things. So I created this more of a feedback issue that just specifically describes some of the interactions that I was questioning. So here's an issue just for a UI exploration for what it would look like if you're inheriting versus overriding form fields at the project level. So there's some discussion here. And again, a lot of these issues, it's nice to be able to break them down so you could work on them independently from the bigger update. And then, so once we come to kind of some agreement or some conclusion on some of these exploration issues, I'll then go back and update our single source of truth and all the prototypes. Yeah, and then, so also as a follow-up issue, so once we're fairly confident, more than 80%, I would say that this update is something that everyone's been waiting for a while, and that we know it's going to provide value. But we still have this follow-up issue that I created just to validate the solution. So once we do our first release, it's going to be good to actually speak with someone that's currently using the service template features heavily and seeing how they're either transitioning to this new way of doing the integrations at the instance and group level, or and then just getting overall feedback on, seeing how they're adopting it. So I think that's it. Yep. So that's it, what I have for this UX showcase. I want to thank everyone on the ecosystem team for all their great feedback and thoughtful comments. And also I want to thank Tori and Jeremy for helping me explore some of those UI patterns. And one other thing, if you're interested in the ecosystem group, I recommend you read up on our stage group page and our stage direction page. They've recently been updated and our team has grown, so which is very exciting. But yeah, anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly, since we're out of time.
Well, we have 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, so yeah, feel free to ask questions then.
Thanks, Leroy. That was great.
Sure.
Good presentation. Anybody want to ask a question? Okay.
No questions, great.